Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to See Chris Fly. Today we're going to be talking about something quite important, something that I really like talking about. This aircraft was as powerful as it was beautiful. It was a gorgeous supersonic transport and it was called Concorde.
The paper dart jetliner conceived jointly by Britain and France to shrink the world and cut air journey times in half.
We had it, ladies and gentlemen. We had a commercially available supersonic flight from London to New York and we let it slip away. But how exactly did that happen? And how was the Concorde designed to go so fast? Well, the answer is going to be explained in today's video. Over the course of the next 5 minutes, I will be explaining to you why this little aeroplane here, I believe, is one of the best aeroplanes ever built in the history of flight.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you and welcome to British Airways to Concorde and our unique supersonic operation. Today from London's Heathrow to New York's John F. Kennedy.
First, before we start, a little bit of trivia for you guys. The Concorde was made by Britain and France together by a company called Aerospatiale. They named it Concorde because it means something along the lines of togetherness in French. Now let's look a little bit into the design of the Concorde. At the front, as you can see, there was a nose that could drop down so as to increase the pilot's view upon takeoff and landing. And it could also be raised up during the supersonic flight to make sure that the aircraft was as aerodynamic as possible. We have the very aerodynamic wings, which kind of make the Concorde look a little bit like a Stingray, I've heard. On the back, we have the 4 Rolls-Royce Snegma Olympus 593 engines, and we also have a very short and stubby tail, which on the new Concordes kind of made the British Airways logo a little bit squished. Now, designs were beautiful, but I must say that it wasn't the designs that made people look up and stare at that wonderful flying Stingray. In fact, we have a friend who used to work at Hounslow Central Tube Station down next to Heathrow when the Concorde was in operation, and he told us that every day at 11 o'clock he would just hear the Concorde flying over him with that incredible sonic boom. It would just make you feel incredible. At least that's what I've heard. The reason Concorde was such an incredible piece of engineering was because it could fly at Mach 2. Mach 2 is 2 times the speed of sound. And trust me, that is very fast. Rolls-Royce spent no expense on creating the best engines for the world's first supersonic transport. They made these special engines which had computer controlling, which allowed for supersonic transport without the need of constant afterburners. The Tupolev 144, which took off a month before Concorde and stole all of the designs from Aerospatiale, had normal engines which needed constant afterburners, which burn even more fuel, which is exactly why the Tupolev 144 was rendered completely useless just months after its release. The Concorde was loud, it was powerful, and it was a commercial failure. Unfortunately, because of the incredible fuel consumption of the Concorde, Aerospatiale were not able to sell many aeroplanes, and British Airways were actually forced to take the Concordes as they were Britain's largest air carrier. Now, operating costs were one of the main reasons for the closure of the Concorde. The Concorde would consume an incredible amount of fuel. To go from the gate to the runway, it would cost the airline 2 tons of fuel. That is a ridiculous amount of fuel just for taxiing. And all of this fuel consumption meant that the Concorde had to carry a lot of fuel, which is a good thing that they installed these big wings. Now, the most fantastic thing about the Concorde was the technology that they had on board. The Brits and the French had all of the best things, including Rolls-Royce engines and the incredible designs of the French. This is what rendered Boeing's 2707 and the Tupolev 144 completely useless because of their incredible weight and lack lack of engineering. By the way, you can check a different video about the Boeing 2707 and the 777-144 in the card right here. But something that everybody has heard of was the Concorde crash, and that was definitely one of the main reasons of the closure. In 2000, an Air France Concorde was leaving Paris Charles de Gaulle when it ran over a piece of metal on the runway. The piece of metal burst one of the tires. The tires flew up and hit the fuel tank, aka the underneath of the wing of the Concorde. Fuel started leaking out and spraying into the engines, and of course, because of the turbojet engines, the fuel set on fire and the whole plane went up in flames and crashed just seconds after it took off from the runway. Now, I don't really like focusing on all of the negatives. I prefer focusing on the positives. This aeroplane, in my view, was the absolute dog's nuts of the British Airways fleet when it was still in use. And I personally believe that it was one of the most amazing feats of engineering in the modern world. We had a supersonic transport, ladies and gentlemen. Regardless of the fact that it's not operational anymore, I personally think that that's quite a big step. And airplane companies are actually starting to manufacture their own supersonic transport, so you can check that out in the card as well. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching my little video on the Concorde. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you very much for liking, and I will see you guys in the next video.